Adaptability. One of the most necessary attributes needed in the heart of every pastor, church leader, volunteer, and even church member. If you don't have it, you're going to miss it.
Right.
Miss what? The golden egg of opportunity. If you don't seize the opportunities around you, you can miss your moments of growth. How devastating, right? Growth requires constant adjustment, tweaking, trying new things, implementing new ideas, which can all be categorized under one topic we talk a lot about, and that's change. Growth requires constant change.
Yes.
Change requires the willingness to embrace adaptability. We're going to talk about that today.
Before we get into today's episode, will you do us a favor? There are so many pastors, church leaders, and volunteers in small towns that truly want to see healthy, supernatural growth.
Yeah.
They want to reach as many people for Jesus in their communities as possible. You can help us get this podcast out to more people than ever before by simply rating or reviewing this podcast wherever you consume the content. You can also share this episode with your friends on social media. That would help as well. Thanks so much in advance. Now, let's dig into today's content.
Welcome to the Small Town Big Church Leadership Podcast, a place for pastors, church leaders, and volunteers to grow themselves and the local church. We're pastors Brad and Misty Hilton, church planters in rural America. Every time your pastor brings change to the table, whether it's trying a new idea, implementing a new policy or protocol, creating a new staff member, position, a volunteer position, launching a new ministry, adding more service times, maybe even launching an additional brick and mortar campus, all produce the same reality for you and your team. Change is on the horizon.
Right.
See what I did there? The way you and others react or respond to the change from that moment forward will determine the potential of that dream, that vision, that idea coming to fruition and becoming a reality. So today, we want to give you 6 things that will help you to embrace and run with the vision in seasons of transition and supernatural growth.
So the first thing is we have to change the way we think about change.
That's so good.
Listen, change is inevitable. It's been said that the only constant in our life is change. So why do we fear? And why do we resist change so much? We fear change for a variety of reasons, okay? These fears are often associated with the fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of rejection, fear of criticism, or fear, honestly, of just the unknown. We're all creatures of habit, and we like that certainty and routine. David Rock, author of the Handbook on Neuroleadership, explains it this way. He says that uncertainty registers as an error or a gap or a tension in our brain, something that must be corrected before one can feel comfortable again. That's honestly why people crave certainty, routine, and predictability, because it gives us a sense of control. But when change occurs in our routine or in the things that become unpredictable, this fear and anxiety starts to creep in. Yeah. And honestly, whether you naturally love change, and some people do, or you don't at all like change, it is a part of a healthy, growing organization. So we all have to learn to just embrace it.
Which leads us to the second thing, and that is see the bigger picture.
Yes.
Seeing the bigger picture means understanding the why behind the what. We've talked about this before, right? So when change comes down the pike, and at our church it happens
all the time,
it's important to grasp fully the reasoning and the vision behind the change so you can embrace it, so you can own it, so you can run with it, right? So don't be the kind of leader or the volunteer or even the kind of pastor that's crippled with vision impairment.
It's good.
Get you a good prescription that allows you to see. I wish I'd have brought my glasses.
Should have.
Would have been such a powerful illustration right now. You need to be able to see clearly what God is doing in you and in your local church, on your team, in your organization. So what do we really mean here? Don't allow your eyesight to be the limiting factor, to limiting to you to only how the coming change is going to affect or inconvenience you and your team.
Yeah, that's good.
So how do you get a better prescription for the vision, right? That's a good question. Think bigger, right? Take a step back. See the full picture from the lens of your leaders.
Right.
And if you're the pastor, see the bigger scope of what God's wanting to do in you and in his local church. If you're a staff member, a team lead, a volunteer, think like an owner. We say this a lot.
Yes.
We've built this phrase into our culture, think like an owner. And that means anything from never passing a piece of trash, don't pass a piece of trash in the parking lot, to the bigger things of ministry and life. To thinking like a pastor. Put yourself in the driver's seat of your pastor or pastors. Think about their job, which is to lead the church charge into seasons of growth as you strategize to reach more people for Christ and make more fully devoted disciples than you ever thought imaginable or even possible.
Absolutely. So we have to see the bigger picture. The third thing we have to do is understand the purpose behind the change. Okay. In order to understand the purpose behind the change, you are going to have to do one thing, and that is ask questions.
This is crucial.
It is. You can't just adapt something that you don't understand. Right. So you've got to ask questions in order to get the bigger picture so that you can bleed the vision to those you lead. You got to fully understand it, all right, in order to explain it. And you don't ever want to be that person that says, well, pastor said,
so this is what we're going to do.
Ask God seriously for you to be able to see that bigger picture and then to get clarity by asking the right questions. And so part of the questions you want to be asking are things like, how does this change line up with the vision or the mission of this church? All right. So when change comes down the pike, even for us as lead pastors, when we start realizing there's a need for change, the first thing we look at is how does this line up with our mission? If we do not change, we stifle the growth. Because if you're not willing...
We're the lid.
Exactly. If you're not willing to say, okay, we have to go to another service, or we have to add another night for midweek, or we have to build another building. Okay, all of those things affect everyone in the organization. What do I need to understand about this change? Ask all the questions that you need to ask so that you can own it
and
yourself.
Understand the purpose.
Yes, which leads us to number 4.
Which is accept the change.
That's right.
So in order for change to happen effectively, all leadership needs to be on board.
Right, yes.
And be able to clearly communicate with excitement.
Yes.
Right, with underscore excitement. The change to come to their teams and to their volunteers, whether the change was your idea or someone else's idea on the leadership team.
Right.
You have to adopt it as if it were your own and be able to run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and that brings us to number 5. Trust God through the transition.
This is so important.
It's so important. Listen, what we're saying is this. Don't be afraid of the change. Trust God. And you say, how do you do that? I mean, it's so scary.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, don't get overwhelmed. It's going to be okay. God is not only with you, He cares more about you growing yourself, your teams, and your church than you do.
That's huge.
He cares more about it even than your pastor does. So what does this really mean? He'll give you what you need for what He's called you to do. And He'll give it to you when He knows you need it. Whether that's more volunteers or that's more finances, He'll provide. He's always faithful, and you can always trust Him. Guys, this is His church. It's His vision, right? So it reminds me of what the Apostle Paul said in Philippians 4 and 6. Do not be anxious about anything. Okay? That includes all the changes that are in front of us. And when I look at that word anxious, it actually means to be troubled, to be fretful, to be worried about something. And the same word is used multiple times throughout the New Testament. One of the passages that uses the same word is in Matthew chapter 13 when Jesus is teaching the parable about the sower and the seed. Okay, if you know that passage. And in verse 22, I want to just show you something in this passage. It says, the seed falling among the thorns refers to the person who hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth, they choke the word, making it unfruitful. Well, this same word worries is the one we just read in Philippians. And so what it shows us is that to choke in this passage meant to suffocate, to smother, to asphyxiate.
I go MMA in my mind.
Right?
I'm like
somebody you can't breathe. Okay? So what we realize from this is worry, guys, is so all-consuming. It literally chokes us out in our mind. It's like you're suffocating and your whole life comes to a standstill. I want you to just think about it. Have you ever found yourself having, honestly, difficulty breathing? Or maybe your heart is racing or your arms are going numb, or you get that migraine headache all of a sudden. When you start to worry about something, maybe it's when your pastors are like, okay, change is coming, and all of a sudden you're like, all these
and we've seen that
natural
in
responses.
Staff meetings. We've seen
right?
that.
I can see it on your face.
You can see it.
But the fact is, our body naturally responds to that anxious thought. And so what we have to begin to realize, again, this is God's church.
Yeah.
It's God's vision. And we have to seriously step back and say, God, we are going to trust you with this transition.
This is yours.
We're going to stop worrying about all the details because once again, it comes down to the fear of the unknown.
God, you shall supply all of my needs according to your riches and glory in Christ Jesus. And if you'll speak the word and pray the word and believe the word, take God at his word.
It will change the way you think about it.
It will change the way you think. Moving into our final point for you today, and this is so good. It seems so incredibly simple and so obvious, right? But here it is. You ready? Stay positive.
So important.
I know you've heard it 1,000 times. I know it sounds like, okay, well, yeah, obviously. But attitudes are contagious, are they not?
Yes.
And here's the question we want to ask you. Is yours worth catching?
Ooh, that's a good question for all of us.
Just want to sit there in that for just a second.
Yeah.
If you're excited and you're positive and you're confident about the change to come, it will energize everyone around you all day long.
Yes.
But if you're not excited and you have a not so great attitude about the change to come, man, people will smell that. They will pick up on that 3 miles away.
Let me even give you an example of what that would look like, okay? So if you were to make a statement to someone else like, well, I guess this is just what we have to do. That is a negative, not so positive attitude towards the change, okay?
Yeah. So how do we stay positive? Keep your focus on the faces.
Yeah.
Behind every face is a story. You don't know everyone's story, but everyone has a story.
Yes.
That's about to change. A story that God wants to rewrite. And your willingness to embrace the change could play a huge role in God's vision for the growth as more and more lives are changed, more and more stories are rewritten. And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that why we all are doing what we do as we serve and are in each of our individual roles in the local church? So let's go over these again as we conclude today. Change the way you think about change.
Yes.
See the bigger picture. Understand the purpose behind the change. Accept the change. Trust God through the transition. And stay positive.
We hope you found today's podcast to be valuable. If so, again, will you please rate and review and share this content on your social accounts? We'll see you next time.